I brought up RP before, and Israetel's big thing is like slow controlled eccentrics, the myo rep concept, which I don't totally understand, intentional partial reps to hit failure. What's your reaction to that whole method?
So what I would say about that is I think that Mike's messaging has been somewhat generalized. I think that sort of thing totally has its place where useful. So where is it useful? So it's not useful for a powerlifter who's peaking for strength, right? I would not tell someone squat 600 pounds as slowly as you possibly can. I'm going to tell them squat 600 pounds as fast as you possibly can, and use as little range of motion as is legal in your powerlifting federation. Because 3 white lights means one of them was wasted. That's just the truth. They give you the records with 2 lights. It's the same records. So I got 3 white lights on both my state records that I got in the past, but one of them was a waste in each time. So I did it too. But I will say for strength and stuff like that, no, he is not addressing that audience. So I want to be fair to him. I just don't like that his brand has become all about that, because there are a lot of people that are training strength modalities, and his app also has a strength training like option if that's what your goal is. Personally, think it's very effective. I have seen people's programs that it's generated. I don't think it works real well, to be honest with you. But it's certainly better than doing nothing. So I'll certainly grant that no one's going to be harmed using their app. It's just that I think you get what you pay for. You pay your 10 or 20 bucks a month, and you get 10 or 20 bucks a month worth of coaching. If that. So what I would say is it useful in a muscle growth phase? It could be. Yeah, if you're just trying pure hypertrophy, it could be, but there are certain reasonable tensions here. So what I would say is you should do it sometimes, and other times you shouldn't, because the other thing is when you train in a particular modality, you become desensitized to that modality. And when you switch to another modality, you become hypersensitized to that modality. So to give you guys an example, when I peaked for my strongman event last year in early July, that was the most muscular I had ever been. I wore this same shirt, and I was filling it out more than I am now because I'm, can't train much, hernia, blah, 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 right? It just depends, right? Like there are bodybuilders that have been very successful at building lots of muscle mass, and I would say probably to their genetic limits, even with enhancements, who are known for going heavy. Who was the guy from the UK in the early 90s? Oh my gosh, Dorian Yates. He would do like sets of 5, and he was huge. He was one of the original mass monsters. He was the biggest. I mean, he was the guy in his day. He was the biggest. Like, he was huge. Worked really well for him. He's also a genetic freak. He's a top 1% of 1% of 1%. So yeah, I don't want to use him, but there are other guys that I've seen utilize that modality that it seems to work quite well with. However, should you do it year round? No, because you shouldn't do anything year round. But I think that they exploited that in their off season going heavy, because we do know from some studies that seem to indicate that volume drives hypertrophy, but so does mechanical tension, at least sufficient mechanical tension. And if you're particularly sensitized to mechanical tension because you've utilized hypertrophy, then maybe it'll do even more.
I put myself in your head, and I'm thinking, what?
You don't want to do that.
What are those things I want to look out for that would indicate, okay, this person has adapted to this stimulus? And how long would that take? Because I feel like that would probably take a significant chunk of time, certainly more than 12, 16 weeks. But is that the case, or what's your response?
Yeah, so the response is going to be like I would always, it's going to be, it depends. So it depends on how stressful that training block has been. That's actually the limiting factor for most of what makes his modality last. So you can only handle like the 12 weeks thing, right? The 12-week peaking program that is like the classic for strength. If you do it right, you can't your strength goes down after 12 weeks. If you milk all the strength. If you trained for 13 weeks, you'd be weaker because you have run that individual into the ground. Now, you don't do that necessarily if that person has another competition 4 weeks later, and you have to tell them like, hey, which one are we prioritizing here? Because I've had to balance that with myself and some clients where they're like, well, I've got this competition, I've got this competition. Like, okay, which one do you want to go all out on? And which one do you want to like give the leftovers to? Or is this your warm-up competition? This is your big competition? How do you want to play this? We can't just say we're going to go all in every time because there's just only so much to give. So it does come down to how stressful is it? How sustainable has it been? And the other thing too is how psychologically prepared is the athlete to follow through, right? Because I will tell you this, if I were to give all of you guys like tempo reps for 3 sets of 8 to 12 or 8 or even up to 15, 14 reps, I go up to 14 reps with a lot of the ladies because it seems to work better for progression. That's just an experience thing. I have no scientific data. If I gave that to all of you guys would probably get rid of me and be like, I'm going to find a coach that doesn't hurt me. Why? Because it would stink. It would just be horrible. You have to be psychologically prepared to follow through. Would you get any better results from it? No, I don't think so. So part of it too is like does time under tension matter? Yes. Does mechanical tension matter? Yes. Do they matter equally? It depends on the time. But I can tell you what, I don't use tempo reps very much for myself. Why? Because I'm still growing. When I do use them, it's to bust through plateaus.